The slave trade was a crucial part of changing the world during the 16th and 19th centuries. Everything during this period was reliant on the slave trade, which ended up being beneficial for Europeans and disastrous for Africans. Beginning in the 16th century, a more public and racially based type of slavery was established when Europeans began importing slaves from Africa to the New World. This segment of the global slave trade transported between 10 million and 12 million enslaved Africans across the Atlantic Ocean to the Americas from the 16th to the 19th century. The transatlantic slave trade was the second of three stages of the so-called triangular trade, in which arms, textiles, and wine were shipped from Europe to Africa, enslaved people from Africa to the Americas, and sugar and coffee from the Americas to Europe. By the 1480s, Portuguese ships were already transporting Africans for use as enslaved laborers on sugar plantations in the Cape Verde and Madeira Islands in the eastern Atlantic. Spanish conquistadors took enslaved Africans to the Caribbean after 1502, but Portuguese merchants continued to dominate the transatlantic slave trade for another century and a half, operating from their bases in the Congo-Angola area along the west coast of Africa. The Dutch became the foremost traders of enslaved people during parts of the 1600s, and in the following century, English and French merchants controlled about half of the transatlantic slave trade, taking a large percentage of their human cargo from the region of West Africa between the Senegal and Niger rivers. In 1713, an agreement between Spain and Britain granted Britain a monopoly on trading enslaved people with Spanish colonies. Under this agreement, known as Asiento de Negros, Britain was entitled to supply those colonies with 4,800 enslaved Africans per year for 30 years. The contract for this supply was assigned to the South Sea Company, of which British Queen Anne held some 22.5% of stock. Despite official policy against slavery, it continues to exist in many parts of the world. Many contemporary slaves are women and children forced into prostitution or working at hard labor or in sweatshops. Debt bondage is common, affecting millions of people, and slaves are often traded for material goods.